I thought this was a really cool list. It kind of makes sense. It kind of blends. I can kind of see all these people's influence in your sound.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's a good mix of stuff.
Yeah, I feel like, and I didn't realize that every person's name started with a J, too.
Yeah, it's so weird. Jeez.
I wrote that out, and I was like, oh, that's...
And
that's
yours
really
does,
weird.
too. Yeah.
I know.
You might come off crazy.
This guy loves J's.
So the first guitar influence you list is John Riis from a bunch of bands, but Hot Snakes, Rocket from the Crypt, and Drive Like Jehu are kind of the most famous ones. So why'd you pick him?
So like I listen to Rocket from the Crypt and Hot Snakes probably once a day, every day. And I love the way that, so he has the two bands. Those are my two ones for him. Like I like Drive Like Jehu too, but Hot Snakes is so weird in the sense of like, everything that he does is so bare bones. Like it's not even like very distorted guitar at all, but like the parts that he plays are so weird.
Yeah, he has a fun way of like, I don't know what you call it, like chord economy. Like it looks like his hands just standing still a lot of times, but like, and you don't really hear where the chord's coming from, or you can't really see where the chord's coming from. Kind of using strange shapes. So how would you describe his technique?
I want to say it's like in that band, like in Hot Snakes, his technique is like almost jazzy. It's like punk jazz almost with all of those voicings and kind of stuff. But then if you take it to like Rocket from the Crypt is like a straight up rock and roll band, kind of like the Bronx or something like that. And that's what I've always like. I got into Rocket from the Crypt first and then Hot Snakes. But Rocket from the Crypt right away, he grabbed me because it's like, he has so many like little guitar hooks, but his vocals are like the big thing that's standing out. That one's just like wall of sound, whereas like Hot Snakes, his guitar playing is like very specific.
Okay. So moving on, the next on the list is
Joshua Homme
from Queens of the Stone Age and Caius.
Oh yeah, I like definitely am into Queens more than Caius. I like Caius too, but I definitely I like how Josh Homme can go from Villains and do like this weird like funky dance record to like complete stoner rock. And I like him too because he's another guy who's like, you can hear him playing in any band, like when he plays with Iggy Pop or like if he's on the Desert Sessions or anything like that, like you can pick out his guitar playing right away. Especially with that weird missing note blues scale that he plays is so weird.
Right. Josh uses pedals, but it's not really key to his sound. It's more like his note choices and scale choices.
Yeah, it's like a lot of like weird semitone type stuff. But the other thing I like about Josh Homme is like he doesn't particularly use a lot of gain either. It's almost like a weird misconception on like the newer records. Like it's a very clean sound, but the way he's playing it sounds like beefy and awesome. Mm-hmm. The first time I heard No One Knows, I was just like kind of losing my mind listening to that tune. And when that new record came out, Villains, after listening to them for so long, I was weirded out at first, but it's just blends together so well. And like all of the playing on that record is so good that it just like brings it all together. And I really dig it for sure.
Okay, moving on. Your next influential guitar player is Jack White of White Stripes, Raconteurs, and Dead Weather, among other things.
Oh yeah, Jack White is so weird. Jack White is like he was probably the reason why I wanted to be in a two-piece band for sure. Because I was like, oh, that's so cool. But he's a dynamic player. Like when you listen to White Stripes, I like that Dead Leaves on the Dirty Ground song, and it goes from like full out, full blast fuzz down to like pretty clean guitar, and then when the parts kick in, it sounds huge.
Also, his style of playing is a little bit unique. Just the fast, frantic picking, and kind of like his nervous phrasing of everything. Like it seems like he's gonna break down at any step. Like every solo is kind of frantic notes, really staccato.
Yeah, it's like every solo is the last solo.
Yeah.
Where totally. It's like, oh, when he's done, like the guitar lights itself on fire, the amp lights itself on fire, his hair probably explodes into flames. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I've always really liked that about him. It's like you said, it's like everything's on the edge of like breaking down, and the staccato picking is really cool. Especially I think when he brings in all that like the fuzz and stuff in it, because if you try and do that like clean, it sounds pretty bad.
What's interesting to me is how Jack's vocals kind of mirror his guitar. He kind of doesn't octave on his vocals often. He'll just like throw it up a whole register and be like singing right at the top of his range. And it sounds kind of weird in a good way. And his guitar kind of mirrors that. He'll play the same riff and just jump it up.
Yeah, it's like everything about him is just a complete struggle.
Yeah.
And like I dig that. Because you're right. Like it's going your vocals a whole octave up, your guitar is up. It is like he's like literally the epitome of almost exploding.
Okay, just moving on down your list. So next we got Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, Jay. Oh man, I want to meet Jay so bad. Yeah. Just because I feel like he would say like one word and I would be like, oh my god, I love your playing so much, and he'd be like, cool, man. And then it would just end right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's this beautiful one we're looking at over here?
I think that's 63. That's what the guy told me when I bought it. I never really looked it up, but yeah.
Take his word for it.
He's definitely one of those guys too, where it's like, oh, it's in his hands for sure. It's in his hands, and it's in the Big Muffs or the Jazz Masters. Or
so I was trying to nail down. I don't really know how to describe his style. Sometimes it sounds like these twinkly early emo riffs, like American Football, and then other times it's kind of like heavy grunge distortion. How would you describe him?
I would kind of describe it as like the Stooges mixed with the loudest country band of all time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he has a lot of like, he definitely likes the country chords for sure. And I know that he used to learn all of the Stooges songs. And I think a lot of that kind of like soloing kind of comes from that like 70s rock vibe for sure.
He does have a bass player, but he's singing and he's playing all the guitar. His tracks often sound like there's two guitarists. He makes like a pretty good use of kind of like throwing a bunch of high notes into his chord work to kind of give it that feel of two people being there, even though it's just him. Have you taken any lessons from that?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Like when playing as a two-piece band and then going back to a three-piece, like it changed the way I play guitar for sure. It like you have to kind of figure out how to keep that rhythm and melody going at the same time and not make it boring. And I think that's a big thing too, is like knowing, and Jay Mascis is really good for this too. It's like he knows when the certain parts are to go like wild and then the other parts to kind of keep it straight. Like Feel the Pain is a big one. That's probably their biggest song. It's very dynamic, and like during the verses, it's kind of just like this picking. It's like do 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 do, and then he's singing over top of it. But as soon as like the chorus comes in, it's like full blast again.
Yeah.
And playing in like the two piece, it's like, okay, you got to figure out where all those parts are to make this crazy, because it can only get so big when you're on stage, right? And if you come out of the gates and you're like, okay, this is the biggest it's gonna get. To me, I always found that I was like, that was a struggle. And like, you don't want your show to be like boring when you've already given away like the biggest sound you can create as two people.
All right, moving on. So the last person on your top 5 influential guitar players is Jesse Keeler, or JFK, from Death from Above 1979.
Yeah.
Guess not actually a guitarist, but
nah, but it's related.
Guitar influence. Yeah, we're not saying necessarily best guitar players. We're saying top influences. Doesn't mean they play guitar.
Definitely. Yeah, I picked JFK because when I was like, as Hack as the two, I keep having to be like, oh, Hack was a two-piece, and it's weird to say that. But like when it was just the two of us, it was like, I really, really liked Jack White for like being weird and like doing all that kind of stuff. But I liked JFK in the way that like when I saw Death from Above 1979 live, like felt like my head was exploding and blowing off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And it was just so crazy to see him rip this bass. And to me, it's like, okay, that's a bass, but he's playing it like a guitar, but it still sounds like a bass. And is so weird to me.
He has a kind of an interesting setup on his stage, like strange amp choices. As we said, he's kind of playing a bass, running it through guitar rig and a bass rig. What kind of, back when you were a two-piece, especially in the early days, what kind of strange choices did you have to make on a budget?
Well, the amp that I used for everything I still own. And it's been like modified since I got it, but it's 70s Trainer YBA1. And that thing, when I got it, it still had the original Phillips tubes in it from the 70s, and there was actual like dirt inside of them. So, and it lasted for so long just on those tubes. But it's basically like kind of like a Marshall Plexi, but sounds huge. It technically was supposed to be like a bass amp back in the 70s. Sounds way better for guitar. You can get them in Canada, like in Ontario, you can get them from around like $500 to like $600. I would definitely recommend anybody. And like I used to just run that through like a Marshall 412 somebody gave, like my uncle gave me. And for the bass side, my good friend Aaron Allen sold me this PV bass head that I used forever, basically.
Yeah.
And he sold it to me for like $100. So and I didn't really know anything about bass amps or whatever, so I just like cranked the bass on it, added a little bit of like the preamp gain and used a fuzz, and that was kind of like my go-to for a long time. I gave up my game. I know you did too. My body fell apart, looking for something new. Right, there's another tube.
All right, we made it through your list. Now I guess we can talk about your band and your playing style. Are there any weird tricks you do on the guitar that we should know about?
I don't know. I kind of like to take something that I've written and I save it for a little while, and then I'll come back to it and I'll try and twist it and make it weird later on. But I'm kind of getting into a lot more of like making chords and putting riffs into them at the same time. Kind of like I'm really into the band The Helicopters right now. So I'm taking a lot of inspiration from that. And now that I have the ability to like make lead lines and stuff with the bass behind it, it's like opened a lot of doors for me. So I'm kind of reinventing my playing style right now. Before, when I was playing like with just me, it was a lot of like big chords, big power chords, a lot of just trying to fill out and make the most interesting riffs that were almost kind of like bass lines. Like Platonic Love Bomb, for example, kind of, to me, it almost feels like more like a bass line. I can always hear that like on a bass.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'll just try and play bass lines as my guitar thing, and then I'll kind of like try and sneak leads in there and sneak little things so that it kind of makes it more interesting as we're going. But no, you caught me in like a weird part of my guitar playing, because I'm like reinventing on how I'm doing stuff, and it's weird to have a bass player again.
We should talk about that. So how did you come up with the decision to add a bass player and kind of change the band formation?
Well, so our original drummer, Nathan, parted ways with the band last year. So our drummer, Lore, and I went on a tour last year throughout the East Coast, and it was great. It was a really great time, but writing, it's like what I was saying before, like writing new songs and writing new things, I needed a push out of my comfort zone. Like I needed something new in that sense, where I was like, it would be really great to have like a third person, A, to like solve conflicts, but B, to have like a third opinion on the music that you're writing, and kind of having just a new voice in there. And now I have two new voices in this band, so it's going to be even more different than it was before. I was like the main songwriter before, and I am still, but I'm definitely excited to see what happens now with two new people. It's such a new vibe.
So you guys haven't released any recordings in this lineup. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have two songs waiting. Like we're going to be releasing some singles soon. One of them was supposed to already be out, but because all of the stuff is kind of taking place, we're kind of holding off a little bit.
Yep.
To kind of see what's going on. And We have a video coming out for the one. These songs are funny though. Like these songs I co-wrote with Aaron Allen, who's a country guy in town. Yeah. Well, I was just like I was saying, like I just wanted to get out of my comfort zone a lot. Like they're still like super rock. They're super. They're still hack, but like they're something different. Yeah. And like so we have those two songs that are going to be coming out, and then we're right now the three of us are working on a new record. We were going to do singles, but I think I really want to have an experience as the band to do like a full record and like kind of have that bonding time, because it definitely takes a lot to do that for sure.
So these two new songs are recorded with the current lineup. Are they like, how do you think the listeners are going to react? Is it going to be, you say that it's still the same old Heart Attack kids, but at the same time there's a co-writer in. How would you explain how they are different? Like, because there are a lot of changes now.
Yeah, so like I want to say that one of them is less so. One of them is like very Heart Attack kids. Like one of them is very like punky for sure. The other one, I tried to kind of take it in a direction where there was a little bit more air. So there's lots of things happening, but you can hear everything.
Yeah.
And the other one's very much like that. It's very hooky. It's all supposed to be all hooks. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for everyone to hear them for sure. It's gonna be good. And those two songs are just to tide everybody over until this new record's done. We've been working really hard on it, so we have a goal to have a record written for October, but with everything that's going on, might not get recorded till later. But we're working hard on it.
Neat. So I was going to ask you about the shows. It's not easy for a rock band in the modern age, and you guys seem like up until the COVID quarantines, we're really hitting the ground running and like working hard. How has it been, and when, if ever, will rock and roll die?
I don't think rock and roll is ever gonna die. I think it's definitely gonna be like there'll be a torch lit somewhere, and I think the touring that we've done has like shown that. Like in Canada, I can give you a couple cities that rock will never die in for sure. Like Moncton, New Brunswick. Mm-hmm. For all the Canadian touring bands, if I can give you any piece of advice, go to Moncton, New Brunswick. They love rock. They have some amazing local bands there. Our last show that we played there was like 300 kids that showed up. It was amazing. Yeah, it was crazy, and they love it. They love to party, love to go hard, and every time I'm in Moncton, I just feel like rejuvenated.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes there's like you go places and there's growth everywhere, but you go places and you're like, oh man, this is still a grind until you get to Moncton, New Brunswick. And then everything is right in the world again.
So Jared, that's all the questions I had. Is there anything you wanted to talk about or you wished I had asked you?
No, I think like we had some good chats for sure. Man, yeah. I really enjoyed this though. I definitely enjoyed talking to you. This has been great.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing it.
Yeah, no, 100%.